increasing conversion rates. We have a very educational, informative webinar coming to you. We also have a lot of people joining us today. So we're going to give everybody 2 more minutes to log on and get ready. And I think that will allow for all of our attendees to be present. So we'll be right back in exactly 2 minutes to start the broadcast. Hello and welcome to MarketingSherpa's webinar. Today's webinar is Optimizing Landing Pages, 3 Keys to Increasing Your Conversion Rates. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We appreciate it. And today's content is going to be laser focused on teaching you specific scientific methodology that will help you organize your landing pages. My name is Todd Lebo, Senior Director of Content and Business Development at MarketingSherpa, and I just have a few housekeeping items that I'd like to go over with you. First is we really want to make this a very interactive presentation. So you will notice on your go-to webinars on the right that there is a Q&A feature. We encourage you to take advantage of that feature. We will try to get to some questions at the end of the presentation. And if we can't get to all of them, we will also try to get to you individually via email or social media. Also, regarding social media, we do have a hashtag for today's webinar. That is Sherpa Webinar. And Sherpa Webinar, and if you have things that you want to add to the conversation, please use that hashtag. The last item is this webinar will be available to you after the webinar. We will send an email and have the audio and PowerPoint available so you can take what you learn and continue to educate yourself on how to optimize your landing pages. So now I just want to get started, and today's presentation we have 2 excellent and very experienced presenters. Our first presenter is Dr. Chuck Coker, and Chuck works for MECLABS. MECLABS is the parent company of MarketingSherpa and Marketing Experiments. Chuck's been with the company since 2007, and he leads our training group. And we do on-site training, training like you have today, and also on-site as far as your company, but also online as well. Chuck's worked with a lot of high-powered companies, including AT&T, General Foods, Sprint, Verizon, Zurich, and he's developed over 50 training programs in his career. So he has a lot of experience in this area of training and optimization. Chuck's also, actually on a personal note, he's a Marine Corps First Lieutenant, and he's a 7th degree Grandmaster Black Belt. So even though we're in the same room together today, I'm standing a few feet away from Chuck, and I think he's a dangerous guy. And also I want to introduce our sponsor and educational partner for this webinar is TRUSTe. And from TRUSTe we have Andreas Stenzel, and he manages the TRUSTe go-to-market efforts. TRUSTe is an online trust leader. If you don't know about them, I would encourage you to go and visit their website. Over the past 18 years, he's had on and offline direct mail and database experience, and Andreas has championed and led that end-to-end demand generation for direct sales, web stores, and globally through their core business of building scalable, profitable online email events and paid programs. So I'm excited that we have 2 high-caliber speakers today, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck to get us started.
Todd, thanks. I appreciate your comments earlier about my martial arts training, and you better keep your distance, brother. I will tell you. But the most important thing we need to do for our audience today is help them find some key issues and some key areas where they can make their conversion rates increase. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people can't put their finger on why they won't click through. They can't put their finger on why they don't get the conversions. Well, today we're going to deal with one of the key factors and each of its 3 sub-issues that keeps the concern level high for people giving us their names, their email address, their phone numbers, and those kind of things. And I think by the end of today's webinar, you're going to have a great idea about how to make that transition. So with that idea in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Now, most of you that are familiar with MECLABS, MarketingSherpa, Marketing Experiments, and our other companies know that we work with a heuristic. A heuristic is a formula that gives us a thought process, not something so much that you would plug numbers into, but a thought process to help you think through the optimization of your website. Now, we know that M stands for motivation. Motivated buyers come to your website, but the important thing that they need to know is that what is your value proposition? What are you going to be able to do for them? And actually, what have you been able to do for other people so that they have a right to trust you? And then what we want to do is move past that to the incentive and friction areas, which keep people from getting actually to the point to where they can convert. Our area of focus today, however, is going to be on that last one, the little 2A, and that is the anxiety, the concern that people feel when they actually get to the website, they're ready to purchase your product or service, and then all of a sudden, I'm not comfortable doing this. So anxiety is the psychological concern stimulated by a given element in the conversion process. So it's not just the appeal, it's not just the aggravation that they deal with in getting to your storefront or whatever it might be, but it's that concern that we're going to be focused on today. So let's get going, let's find out what we can do to eliminate that, and let's make something happen on your website today. So let's cover these 3 points about, or the principles of anxiety. First of all, it's lethal, and it's actually growing because of the way that we're inundated with emails and all of the information that hits a buyer. It is actually a conversation that we have to establish and use to reduce the friction and build a trust relationship. So if you're thinking about getting rid of anxiety in rational terms, you're probably going to fail. And the reason is that people have anxiety because people have anxiety. It is an emotional aspect. It's not something that we deal with on a logical basis. So the important thing for you to remember is that sometimes we have to actually overcompensate for the concern that people have on the website. And if we overcompensate, then what we will often do is push the individual to the point to where they have a complete trust and a willingness to give the email address, the name, the phone number, and of course the Visa or MasterCard number. So how do we do that? We localize it to the area where the person is purchasing. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus today on 3 key principles. And these 3 key principles are going to help you eliminate the anxiety on your website and improve the click-through rate. And so those 3 factors are specificity, proximity, and intensity. Now let's take a look at them just a little bit more closely. These are the 3 areas that we'll focus on, and we're going to talk about combining all 3 of these. We're going to pull them apart one by one in today's lesson. We're going to focus on specificity first, Then we will move to intensity and then proximity. And what we will do is we will actually give you an example of what this looks like so that you're not just doing best practices. We want you to actually understand, because what you're trying to do is not optimize by best practices. What you're trying to do is optimize and relieve the anxiety of your people through their thought processes, because it is their thought processes that actually make them convert. So in order to do that, let's pull these parts up, these pieces apart one by one. But before we get into specificity, I'd like some feedback from you. Please talk to me right now, because one of the things that we want to know from your perspective is, what are the biggest opportunities for driving online traffic in 2011? You and I both know we've got a very quick changing marketplace. So for 2011, we're going to open up the poll right now, and we're going to ask you this question, and please respond to us. We'll give you the feedback as soon as we get it over the next 20 seconds or so. But what are the biggest opportunities for driving online traffic in 2011? Now, with that question, while you're giving us our feedback, I'm going to ask you, Andreas, would you step in here for just a minute and tell me some of the things that you see that are big opportunities for driving online traffic?
Well, we certainly watch and participate in social media marketing and mobile marketing here at TRUSTe. Probably one more interesting point is working with several thousand clients, all of whom are doing business online to some extent. We see a very, very rapid growth into mobile marketing these days, and both into mobile websites and into mobile apps, of course, as everybody knows. So I'm actually going to speak about that a little bit later as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Andreas. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Justin here real quick, and tell us what the polls are telling us, Justin.
Currently, right now, it looks like social media marketing with 33%. It looks like everyone's checking this out. Next, we've got optimizing your website at 31%, followed by mobile marketing, and then content syndication.
This is excellent feedback, because as you can see, the market is changing. If we'd asked this question a year ago, it certainly wouldn't have been social media marketing at the great percentage that we're dealing with right now. So let's go to our first concept, and that's specificity. Specificity is the level to which your corrective measures actually address precisely the source of customer anxiety and work to counteract it. Now, what am I talking about? Let's look at the different sources where a person could have anxiety on a website. Is your product something of quality? Is it reliable? Are your services secure? And of course, what kind of, where do you fall in that pricing market? Now, how do we deal with the corrections in those areas to reduce the anxiety? It's simple, but yet it's something that so many people miss. First of all, we can give a 100% satisfaction guarantee. And I trust you the little bit of time that you spend on that artwork to tell your clients that they don't have to worry about their purchase, that you're going to guarantee and refund their money, relieves a lot of concern. It reduces anxiety. It gives them the security that they need to make that next step and convert. The second thing is testimonials. I think it's extremely important that we remember one thing. You don't put on your website that we're the greatest, we're the best. The important thing for you to consider as you look at trying to reduce a person's anxiety and moving them to click-through is the fact that other people can toot your horn a lot better than you can. Please don't forget that. Don't toot your own horn, because it's like bragging. It's like somebody coming in and say to a bar and telling a young lady that I'm the greatest and best football player that ever was. I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now let's go to my house. You know, you just don't do that. It's bragging, and very few people will buy into that. If you let somebody else tell your success story and tell the way that you've been able to help them, the efficacy of it is tremendous. But make sure you do one thing, and this is a secret that a lot of people miss. Make sure that that testimonial is directed to the specific area that you're trying to address. Don't have them say that Joe Smith is a great guy and a great president of the company when what you're trying to do is sell the quality of your material. Have that testimonial address the quality. Third is we want third-party seals that reduce the anxiety or the concern. And the trustee seal next to a secure website where a person can enter their MasterCard or Visa number is a deep breath of relief. They need to know that they can trust your website and they will not be compromised in the process. And of course, last but not least, if you're in the pricing market, what you're going to have to do is offer that low price guarantee. It's important that you do that so that people will not feel that they have to leave your site and go shop someplace else and maybe come back to you, because once they're gone, chances are they're gone. So let's keep moving. Let's actually look at an experiment that we pulled from the Marketing Experiments Research Library. It's a 24-day test on a nonprofit that supports Alzheimer's disease research. And what we wanted to do was improve their donation conversion. So what we did was we looked at, through an A/B split test, which page was going to generate the most donations. As you can see from this particular page, there's a great big "you can give hope," and while that is a nice thing to do, especially if you are a generous person to see, the point is you really don't know where you're helping. You don't know, and you cannot find enough information on that particular page that tells you where does your money go, how is it used, and how are you going to be contributing individually. So what we did is we looked at this particular page and we began to ask ourselves, where's the anxiety on this web page? What do you actually do with my money? Does my contribution really make a difference? Why do they need this much information? Is it a reputable organization? And does this organization have the same values I do? Well, we were able to answer some of those questions. What do you do with my money? Well, 94% goes to research. Why do you need this much information? They explain why they do. And of course, how reputable is the organization is settled with the seals that we talked about a little bit earlier. So that leaves two questions that are completely unanswered to the average individual that comes to the website. Does my contribution really make a difference, and does the organization have the same values that I do? So in order to reduce those points of anxiety for this organization, we redesigned an optimized web page that kept some of the consistencies, but what we addressed was, does it really make a difference? And here's a personal story about Jenny and her grandma. And here we go into the story that allows a person to actually relate to and to buy into and to begin to feel a part of the process that they need to feel a part of, to want to join and be a part of the organization. So that matter-of-fact information, along with the personal story about how the donations help specific people, help seal up that aspect of anxiety on this particular web page. Then the next thing that we moved on to was the lower part. We added a very personal and powerful statement from the founder. This gave the visitors insights into the values of the organization. In other words, they now begin to relate to, yes, this is an organization that I can trust in, that I can tie into mentally. And so we reduce that anxiety by moving the credibility indicators closer to the call to action. Where's the call to action? You can see it down at the bottom of the page. That's where we need the endorsements. And we'll talk about that proximity a little bit later. So at this point, what we have done is we have addressed a couple of very important issues. Now, how important were those issues? Let's take a look and see. When we compared the original page to the optimized page, this is the appearance difference, which doesn't look a whole lot different, but there were some key areas that we focused on to give a 54% increase in conversions. The most important thing that you need to understand about reducing the anxiety is that we got that 54% increase because we made the site more personal. We addressed very specific concerns that had not been addressed on that original web page. So as you go through and look at your particular web page, ask yourself those same 5 questions. And as you ask yourself those 5 questions, then you can begin to focus on what needs to be focused on. So let's talk about proximity. Proximity is actually our second part, and it says, what is the degree to which your corrective measures are placed such as they are experienced at the same time or as soon after the moment that anxiety is stimulated? So what we want to do is make sure that this happens quickly and very close to the time when we're asking them to give us their Visa or MasterCard number. Now, Andreas, in the slide we see right here, why is it so important that we have that TRUSTe logo right next to the credit card name?
Well, when we have it on the page, it helps if it's visible. The closer you put it to that point of transaction, whether it's a form submit or a credit card entry like this, the more visitors and customers are reassured that their data is being protected, their privacy is being respected by that company.
Exactly. And Andreas, you're so right. The further away from where we're asking them to give us very personal information, email addresses, name, credit cards number, the further that is away, the greater chance you have of actually losing the person. And so you want that TRUSTe symbol very close so that it reduces the anxiety that my information might be compromised. So let's go on to intensity. Intensity is our number 3 focus at this particular point. And intensity is the level of the corrective measure that we must address both the substance and the perception of the concern. In terms of substance, you need to address the rational foundation of the source of anxiety as it relates to the realistic level. But in terms of perception, you must also overcome the extra level of emotional concern that's stimulated by the amplifying effect of fear-borne anxiety. We said that most purchases, most sales are emotional. And that person brings their emotion to the website. So if you have not developed a good relationship at this point with the person and you have not relieved their anxiety at this point, then you are going to run into problems. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some ways to affect an overcorrection or get them over that emotional hump. And Andreas, I'm going to ask you about some of these external factors. What about the security seals, the credibility indicators? How important are they really?
I think it depends on the way you use the web to help your business. For e-commerce companies that truly live and die off of the traffic they drive to the web, I think security seals and other types of seals are very important, and we see that with our test results and our customer counts here. if you are, and you can imagine the types of businesses that collect private information about you that influence this as well. So, you may not be doing e-commerce with a life insurance company, but you're entering a lot of very sensitive details about your health and your family's health online through a form. It can truly, these seals can truly influence whether you even complete the form and how much data you're comfortable putting in with it.
Excellent. It's just like, kind of smiling and giving that air of confidence over the net to your people. You're telling them basically that they can relax by using those external factors. Now, another way to affect your overcorrection is through internal factors, and that is so critically important, because the way you write your copy, the language, the tone, the way you personalize it, if you add your picture in there, just adding that picture makes people relate to you better. Your signature, the images, the kinds of colors. You don't want a bright red on a screen where you're trying to think about security. You want to make sure that your privacy policy is actually conducive to getting the person click through, and the About Us page gives them a point of comfort. So as we think about those internal factors, you can have your seals there, but unless you approach it with good copy, language, personalize your site, you remember you're optimizing people's thoughts, not positions on a web page. And as you do that, the way that you do that is with those colors, with those tones, with that language, and you're continuing to deepen the relationship through the process. And in doing that, let's look at this example. This is a very abrupt, say, point of conversion, and it says, provide us with your credit card information. Bang. That's harsh. That's difficult. In turn, what we use is something more like this. Provide your credit card information. It's a free trial, but why do you need my credit card? And you'll notice that there's some writing in between, but the bolded part right there at the bottom, you will never be charged during your free trial, and you can cancel anytime. That is the secret to removing the concern. You're not going to be charged, and you can quit anytime you want. That's what will allow the reduction of anxiety. That's what we call overcompensation. That's what we use to bring the person to the point. And you'll notice that's really the only change on that page. But it has to do with the tone and the quality of what you're saying to those particular people. Now, as we move on to an actual experiment where we're going to show you how to focus on all three of these points, I want to ask you one more quick question. So let me take a rabbit trail real quick with you, and would you answer this question for me, please? What % of your 2011 budget is set aside for actual testing and optimization of your own websites? What percentage of your 2011 budget is set aside for testing and optimization? If you'll answer that for me now, Andreas, I'm going to ask you to come in and give me your feedback from what you have seen and what you have learned in this particular area.
Okay, Jeff. Well, at TRUSTe, we do privacy programs and services, and one of the most interesting side effects of doing these is increases in conversion rates across the board, whether it's in e-commerce web stores or on landing page forums or, engagement in social media platforms and other online platforms. So one thing we offer is a free A/B testing to prospective clients. We do charge on some occasions if an e-commerce company wants a full funnel analysis test, but that's an edge case. But we've seen, I'd probably say dozens, if not hundreds, of these test results, and there are a couple couple key points. The more prominently a seal is placed at that point of transaction that we spoke to earlier, the better the results. We find, seals tend to be complementary. Some of the security seals can protect the transaction, so while the user is entering their information and while it's being transmitted across the web to the client. But then people don't realize that TRUSTe will help protect your data once it is with the company. So that can be that day, that year, or several years, and that's a key distinction. So many online users understand that, many don't. That's one thing. And then in general, we find that not surprisingly, not a lot of companies are doing regular testing. They seem to do it at the beginning of the year or at the launch of a new campaign, or sort of a little more sporadically. And that's one thing. That's what I always try to test consistently. Every month we try to do something here for our own TRUSTe marketing efforts.
Andreas, that is so critical. You have brought up a point that is absolutely critical, and those of you that are listening out there, please remember that if you don't continue to test, especially with the market changing the way it is today, you are going to lose your edge. Testing is key. Testing will help get you over the point where you can stop wondering and you can continue to move on. So let's move ahead. Justin, what kind of results did you get?
Looks like we had about almost 85% actually either don't test at all or are less than 10%. So a majority of the people are not testing their optimization pages.
Okay, well, what I encourage all of you to think about is you cannot measure something that you're not testing. You cannot measure how effective you are being if you are not testing. And I don't mean to sound like I'm scolding you. That's not what I'm doing. I'm encouraging you to think past just developing a good web page, because as you've seen over the years, the way people approach web pages differs, and it's important. So let's go on to our experiment. Let's see if we can find all three aspects and how to use all three aspects in making this thing work. So we're going to talk about a web hosting company, and we want to increase the server signups. And so this was their original page, and you can see from their headline, what do you want to use your website for? Well, I don't know about you, but that's not real encouraging to me. I think I know what I want to use my website for, but the important thing is it wasn't something that was pulling the people in. And you'll notice that with the options in the middle of the page and all of the different variables, you've got a lot of friction going on this page. There's a lot of things to distract you and keep you from making a choice. There's a lot of unsupervised thought going on this page. All right, let's look at the top half of it and see what we would do there in that particular situation. So and the bottom half, that we can reduce some of these options to help move the person along. So the optimized page, as you can see, has a whole different look. It is obviously the same company, but what it's saying is not what do you want to do, it's saying here's our best packages put forward and why you should choose. The bullet points are there, the guarantees are there, the security is there, that they're there 24/7 for you. And we're going to point out just a few things here at this point that helped make a difference. So up at the top, what we did was we focused on strengthening the communication of the value proposition. This is the best package that you can get. This is the best package that we've offered at any particular point. And at that particular point, the optimized page alleviated some concerns that arose with a lot of online hosting services. What did it say? 100% uptime. Customer support 24/7. These are things that if you're in business, you really cannot afford to struggle with. You have to be up all the time to meet your customers' needs, and you got to know you can get a hold of somebody at a particular time. Those clear graphic images just communicated a strong reliability factor with the seals. Also, the bullet points gave answers to other concerns about no hidden charges, local-based call center, 30-day money-back guarantee, verified secure. Those are the kind of things that helped move this person past the point of anxiety. Now let's look at the bottom half of the page. As you could see before, there were two options, but what is it that stands out now? The options of the features have been reduced highly, and there's testimonials right next to the options that address each specific issue. Those testimonials talk about how good the site is easily updatable. They talk about being easy to understand as far as the shopping goes. Each testimonial is focused. Now, also, you're going to notice up at the top that rather than one thing, what we did was it directed them to the best value. So let's look specifically at the testimonials that I mentioned earlier. They're easy. They're reliable. You can see them right next to the service. And we use the best value instead of best seller. Most people don't care what you're selling. What they do care about is what they're going to get the most out of, what's going to provide them with the best return. And it specifically addresses any concerns that arise from the difference in price. So when we compared these two pages, even though they have a lot of similarities in look, what were the results? Well, the results were a 162% increase in higher conversion rate by strengthening the communication of the value proposition as well as addressing customer anxieties. Now, if you'll think back to the example we talked about of the Alzheimer's project, you'll see that while their value proposition may have been good, there was also that anxiety that were they going to get something for what they were putting in? Could they tie themselves to it? And the personalization aspect. And it's the same thing in this particular area. We personalized it. We made it easier to read. We've overcompensated with our guarantees for 100% uptime and 24/7 customer service. We have continued to deepen the relationship. We've optimized the thought process and moved the page visitor to a logical conclusion. So the 162% increase is because you're directing them towards the reduction of the anxiety. Now, at this point, I hope that we have helped you. I hope that we've given you some ideas about the specificity, the proximity, and the intensity of what you need to address on the particular web page to move the person from beginning to closure. So what I'm going to do at this point is remind you of the three principles. It's lethal. It can literally shut down your ability to close the sale. If you want to reduce anxiety, you can't do it with a logical, rational approach. You literally have to overcompensate and focus on the point right where the buying process is going on. Specificity, proximity, and intensity are the things. Make sure that you address specifically the concerns. Make sure that they're close to the point of conversion, and make sure that you overcompensate for the things that bring anxiety to your customers. So when we talk about that intensity, remember that in terms of substance, you need to address the rational foundation, but you also need to overcompensate the fear-born anxiety. So at this point, what I'd like to do is hope that we have answered most of your questions, and we'll move on to the real question that we have, and that is, can you trust me? And Andreas, how do we get people to trust us?
Thanks, Chuck. We'll go over a few slides in the last couple minutes here before we open for Q&A. And one thing I'll start with here is babies have a sense of trust when you walk through the store. They smile at some people and they don't smile at others. And I think this sense stays with us until we're adults. When we walk into a business or a restaurant maybe, and you kind of sense right away whether that you know whether it's good or maybe not going to be so good. This is much harder to do online. So I'll go over a few kind of trust building and trust accelerating best practices that we've found here with our thousands of clients over the last 13, 14 years. And some of them are similar to the ones Chuck has spoken to, and some of them are new. So diving into it, trust in the open web. We specialize in online businesses. We do some offline work as well, but the lines are certainly blurring. Search and social and content syndication is advancing extremely rapidly. The web is opening up, and information is being shared and bought and sold literally at the speed of light. The lines between devices are blurring. Your laptop is now, your phone and your device and your iPad, and they're all kind of interchangeable these days. And so what comes with this is devices now know who you are, of course, and where you are. And in often cases, they can access data through other sites and other means to know all about you. No more forms required as they were just a few years ago. And as you know, there are many sites oftentimes getting in trouble that post personal data online, and we at TRUSTe work with those sites to straighten them out or point them out to our consumers. So my point is, building trust online has never been more important than it is these days. Okay, next slide, please. Customers who trust you buy more. A couple of things TRUSTe does is we accelerate interactions and transactions online. Whether you have a social media section of your website, or you have a web store, or you're just driving folks to lead forms or an event reg, we accelerate the trust component that Chuck has spoken to today. We advance your brand online. We do a credibility transfer to people who know our seal already. So if you're a new business or you're just starting up and people don't know you, but they do see that TRUSTe seal and other seals as well, they know that there are things that you are doing that are kind of credible and third-party validated, and that's important to folks. We have lots of survey data saying 70, 80, even 90% of people that visit sites recognize our seals and other seals. So there's a brand component to this. And the nuts and bolts of our service are around privacy programs and protecting consumer data, so we act as a second line of defense to mitigate risk to your company. And this is one key difference for us versus a legal team or a legal firm on retainers. We do this in near real time. So as advances are made in behavioral targeting, or companies are doing things with user privacy that is making headlines, we are updating our policies for our clients within hours or days of these occurrences. It's an important differentiator for us. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So Chuck spoke to some amazing points, and we'll reiterate some of the things from his intensity section. So here are a couple points you can do to accelerate trust on your website today. We are all for communicating the human touch. Show that you are human beings running a business, working every day. And some easy ways to do this, and we do this on our side, are give your full contact info. Let people get in touch with you in a number of ways, by phone, by form, or even by chat. Have an About Us page and leadership pages that tell people about your company, about who's running your company. Include pictures, as Chuck mentioned. All of these things will help. If you look at the little snapshot on ours, we show the real ROI results that customers have gotten from using us, and then some of our high-profile client logos as well. That always helps, and has a credibility transfer as well. Some more transactional assurances, privacy and data management best practices will help accelerate trust, certainly. You want to give users transparency into what you're doing. You want to give them a choice and control over what you're doing. And so we heavily promote a good preference center accessible from various places on your site, and certainly in email and other communications you're sending. Put disclaimers on forms. We had a good question come in through the chat about whether spelling out exactly what you're doing on a form works well or not. We can speak to it later, but yes, it does if it's fairly brief. And then certainly privacy policies. You want to have clear, clean, easy to read privacy policies that state what you're doing with user data. Certainly, we at TRUSTe certainly advocate moving away from the dozens of paragraphs of legalese with something important to consumers buried somewhere in the middle or towards the end. We want clear and easy to read things. So simple graphic here. We try to move people away from an opt-in or opt-out mentality, like you work with us or you don't, to an opt-up or opt-down. Here are the ways that I want you to contact me. Here are the ways that I want you to use my data or not use my data. Okay, next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, we have a couple thousand heading towards, I think, 4,000 clients now. Many of them have succeeded with the conversion rate increases in a variety of ways, whether it's getting more opt-in newsletters or forms submitted. We've also seen companies get decent increases in the quality of leads that they get from us. And then, of course, from an e-commerce side, we do really well here with many of our clients seeing over a 20% jump. And there's a multiplier I should speak to here. You can get an increase in your conversion rate, so more people are buying from you, and then we quite often see an increase in revenue per visit. And sometimes we see both, so you have a multiplier there that's really beneficial to e-commerce businesses in particular. Okay, next slide, please. I highlighted a couple of success stories, but here we have a number of industries represented with more prominent logos. And with several hundred of you on the phone, I noticed that many of you were from our client companies, so thank you for joining today. As I said before, our TRUSTe is our company name. Our name speaks trust. We've been doing this online for 14 years now, and have 3,000 plus, more, heading towards 4,000 clients. One interesting thing to note is we put our TRUSTe seals on the privacy pages and many times on all of the pages of many of these clients. And people who visit those client sites can click on the TRUSTe logo to visit those clients' privacy policies and to see that they are certified by TRUSTe. An interesting thing to check out is that when they click to the TRUSTe validation page that shows the information is certified for that particular client, there's a quick thumbs up, thumbs down survey that people can take. And it's interesting, on some of these clients we have over 1 million people that have clicked a thumbs up and for that site's privacy practice. This is a great validation of our service. We have over 1 million people doing this every month, so it's interesting. So thank you for your time, and I think we'll have questions and answers now. So I'll turn it back to Todd.
Yes, we do have some questions, and we've had a lot of questions come in. So Andreas and Chuck, let's just start off. The one question that came in numerous forms, but basically from our B2B audience, was really wanting to find out a little bit more about, can seals be, how can they be best used when you're doing a lead gen form as compared to like your typical, credit card where you're asking for credit? Is it important? If it is, should you consider any different tactics when you're using it in a lead gen form?
Well, I think one of the most important things about using any seal is the more pronounced it is, the more attractive it is, and the closer in proximity to use it, the more power it's going to have. And the uniqueness of the seal, especially if you have a very unique product, can also have a huge impact on whether the person buys into the process. Andreas, what would you add to that?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Having it closer in to the submit button is certainly helpful. We've had a number of tests around this, and size, placement, and then additional text and additional disclaimers are also great. I would probably generalize to say it's better to keep it a little shorter, 5 to 10, maybe 12 words, saying we do not share or we only share if you allow us to, is probably the way to go. If you have a number of things that you do with user data, it's probably good to say here, learn more about how your data is used and link to the privacy policy or a special page. One additional thing we've started doing based on customer requests is creating like a hover over. So they have the TRUSTe logo there, and if you hover over it, it gives you a little larger graphic that shows a couple sentences about what the client is doing with data. And that we found that helps test results and performance as well.
Thank you, Andreas. Todd, what's our next question?
Michael had a question. Actually, I'm sorry, you kind of answered that. He had that question about using both the seal and the text, and I think we could say on our side, too, that can very well be something you want to test, because sometimes people gloss over and they don't know what the seal means, so having that second way to reference is very helpful. So that was the question Michael had. The other question was a little bit related to, we've talked about credit card, and we've talked about B2B forms, but then also when it's tied to a phone lead where you're going to be, taking that lead to call, is there any additional, words of guidance you would give, Andreas, on, that type of situation where a company is trying to, the next step is going to be, a phone call?
I'm not sure if we have test results based on phone traffic driven. But I can certainly look around. Based on our own TRUSTe marketing, we do drive phone traffic through certain ads, and I think just a sense is it would help. We have a number of lead aggregator clients that are driving phone traffic for their clients, and I've seen the call to action on some of the ads be to call an 800 number. We even have our TRUSTe ads pop up on TV commercials here and there, so where a call to action is an 800 number. So I imagine some of our clients are seeing some benefit. Probably depends on the type of business, for sure.
I would imagine as the marketer, it goes back to that concept that was Chuck taught about overcompensation for anxiety, and I would probably, as a consumer, put the phone as even a higher anxiety point.
Oh, yes, no question.
And I think, maybe that's just that aspect of how do you overcompensate. Well, we know that the threshold goes even higher depending on what information you're asking for.
Exactly. We have one more quick question from Will. His question is, how do you measure anxiety to know that it's growing? Well, I think one of the biggest signs that anybody can pick up on is your drop-off and click-through rate. If you are having a tremendous drop-off and click-through rate when you get to the storefront, then you've got to know that anxiety is growing. That's why it's so important to continue to test, continue to test, continue to test over a period of time. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Andreas?
Oh yeah, I would reiterate your point. Just continually test and optimize. Things do change over time, and what I've known is the multivariate testing tends to work well with us because you can throw in some combinations that you wouldn't normally think of, and sometimes even some of your internal folks are against. You'll notice sort of brand marketers will want to keep things looking a certain way, but sometimes a very unusual combination of graphics and layout and text may produce a winner that nobody saw coming. So think out, use tools that think outside the box.
Andreas, thank you very much. We've got just 1 or 2 minutes left, real quick. One last question, and that's from John Stodadla. And it is, will we receive a copy of this presentation? Todd, will you tell us a little bit about how they can get a copy of this presentation and find out more about on-site training, regular training, or how to reduce anxiety better, or get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, well, that's an easy one, because we will definitely be sending out via email to everybody who's attended the audio and the PowerPoint as a combined file. So you'll be able to go back and review these points, and I would encourage you, I'm a marketer as well, take this back to your team and challenge them to look at what are the 3 or 4 things that we could test over the next couple months, because we're looking at, through our experimentation and marketing experiments, we're looking at 10, 20, 50, sometimes 150 plus improvements on conversion rate. And as a marketer, I know how difficult it is to generate more leads and how difficult it is to increase sales. So just that opportunity to improve our conversion rates and to look at different ways that we can do that by getting inside the mind of the customer is just a great opportunity. So we also would encourage you to go to MarketingExperiments.com where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, and we cover the heuristics and our testing, provide more advice. We also, if it's okay with you, Chuck, would you mind us giving people your email in case they want to learn more about the other training things that we can do for their organizations?
Absolutely, Todd. That's not a problem. Chuck.Coker, C-O-K-E-R, at MECLABS.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions, whether it's on-site training, online training, or advanced usability studies that we'd be able to help you with.
And then lastly, Andreas, thank you for being on this webinar. And do you have any advice as far as people to connect with you or TRUSTe about some of the programs you have available?
Certainly. Well, probably first off, thank you for having us. This was an exciting topic, and we're happy to share our insights on it. We definitely encourage people to visit our site and take a look at our programs. We offer a range of privacy and legal services to businesses small and large, starting at just a couple $100s for a year. We also have dozens of people here that are experts in online conversion. So, if you're interested in A/B testing a seal with us, or, several seals with us, please reach out, and we'll work with you to get things started.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate everybody who's on the line taking time out of their day, and have a great afternoon and a great marketing week.